When you think about advocating or advocacy, there are a couple things that you have to know are sort of the order that you want to go in as you begin this process. The first thing you're going to do is identify the issue. So I'm assuming if you think you're going to have to advocate, there's a concern, right? There's a concern that you have, or it could just be you're not really sure if you have a concern or not. So you want to identify whatever the problem, the challenge, or the area that you really don't understand, but you want to gather some more information about. Two, you want to know your rights. So you're going to have to do a little bit of research so that you understand, because there's different rights inside of different systems. Just because you might have a child with a disability, for example, doesn't mean that you have the rights to anything inside the school system. For instance, a lot of people think that their child has the right to one-on-one instruction with a teacher at school every day. That's not a legal right that you have. There may be times during the day when your child needs to have that one-on-one instruction because they're failing to grasp the concepts in the larger situation or the larger setting. So by understanding your rights and a little bit about the laws that govern whether it is healthcare or employment, education, knowing a little bit about your rights and what the law says about those things is going to go a long way, because you'll be able to exercise those rights. You'll be able to make sure that other people know that you've done your research. You have to understand a little bit about the system that you're operating inside of and what motivates them. Everybody's motivated by something. A lot of times it has something to do with the budget. I know, it's shocking. Now, every system is a little bit different, so you have to understand the system you're operating inside of, but everybody's motivated by something. So a lot of times when you find out what's motivating them, it will give you a more clearly defined plan of action about which window you need to come in. Maybe it's not the door. Maybe you need to come in a side door or a window. You have to know your audience, at least know a little bit about them. So if you're going to be meeting with someone, maybe it's your school, maybe it's your healthcare provider or some type of residential facility, whoever it is you're going to be meeting with, you have to know a little bit about them. If you don't know them, you can talk to other people. You can have a phone conversation with them just so that you can get some ideas about what approach they're going to take to whatever concern you have. As an advocate, I will tell you, a lot of people come to me, they're all fired up, they have this huge concern, they're angry, they're upset, they're frustrated, all those emotions just flowing all over the place. And when I say, well, have you talked to anybody at that place? Oh, no, I haven't done that. So you don't know, because, I have seen things happen. I've seen people get things that even I thought as an advocate, you do not have the legal right to this. It's not going to happen. But when they go and they speak for themselves and they advocate for themselves or their loved one, the system sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes it just goes ahead and does the right thing without having to get an advocate and go through a process of having to beg, borrow, and steal in order to get the things that you think you should get. Anyway, you have to develop your plan of action and your strategies. So the time to figure out what you're going to advocate for or about is not in the heat of the moment. Because when you're in that moment and you're trying to get something that you need, that your loved one needs, it's really challenging to deal with all the emotions that you're feeling at that time and keep your wits about you and be able to advocate successfully. So you want to have a plan ahead of time. Write those things down on a piece of paper so that you have them with you. You have to ask questions. What you don't want to do is get home and think, there were so many things that I needed to ask. Or you're reviewing what happened that day with somebody else and they're like, did you ask about this? Did you ask about that? The time to get those questions kind of planned out is in advance. So get your questions that you want to ask, you write them down. Then when you get there, you can say to everybody, okay, hold up a minute, because I have some questions that I wrote down on a piece of paper and I just want to go over these, because I don't want to get home and figure, oh my goodness, there were so many things that I didn't ask that I should have. You want to document the conversation that happened. So when you get home, send a follow-up email. Thank you so much for the meeting today. This is what I heard out of our conversation, just to confirm that you did indeed hear what you heard, and so did they. Because sometimes, I often will get into a meeting and the parent will say, well, this is what we talked about last time. And the school will say, oh, no, we didn't talk about that. So you want to send your follow-up just so that everybody is out there in the open about what transpired during the conversation, and especially if decisions were made. If decisions were made and they were not documented, you have to assume that no decision was made, right? So either it's documented in your plan of action that everybody has signed, such as that IEP, if you have a child in school, right? It will be documented in there. If it's not in there and they just said that they're going to do something, but they didn't document it, it's probably not going to happen. Or you're going to get really lucky if it happens. So make sure it's documented in there, but you also want to write a follow-up email, letter, whatever you want to do, but put it in writing or in text to get it to them. And the one thing that advocacy really does is it promotes accountability. We deal with so many systems today, and they're overtaxed. They got too many people coming at them at one time. They forget, right? I do. I deal with a lot of people every day, and there's things that I forget. So I need people to remind me. So it's the same thing with these institutions. They need people to remind them so that they can be held accountable. When my son was in school, I always used to let them know that I was going to want to see data. And so it kept them prepared for that moment when I would say, okay, let me see the data on his reading skills or his math skills or how he was doing socially. And so by making sure that they knew that I was going to hold them accountable, it really promoted a good education for him. And he did receive a good education. He needed a lot of services, but the system was there to provide those services in whatever manner it was that he was going to need them. And by making sure that I shared with them I was going to want to see the ongoing data, it also kept them on track of not only collecting the data, but providing the interventions that he needed. Okay? All right, so I hope this was a good little synopsis of some of the things that you need when you're going to advocate. The one other thing I want to add is community building. So no matter where you are, I hope that you will join other folks doing the same kind of advocacy as you are doing, because there is definitely power in numbers. And even if that number is 2, it's still more than 1. And so I encourage you to reach out to other people, take friends with you to some of the meetings that you go to so that you can both leave and say, okay, did you hear what I heard? And it will also help you as you continue your advocacy efforts moving forward.